In this video, I'll be sharing tips on how you can ace the IELTS test, that is the general training test, which is one of the requirements for the Canadian Express entry. Hi guys, welcome back to Mikoko's Diary. My name is Michael. I'm a Nigerian immigrant living in Toronto, Canada. On this channel, I share stories about my experience as an immigrant in Canada. I also talk about tech and share fun stuff on this channel. If that's the kind of stuff you'd like to see, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification bell. Thank you. In one of my previous videos where I shared the story of how myself and my wife, how we came to Canada, I mentioned that we both got the highest band in our IELTS test. And that is in reading we had 9, in listening we had 9, in writing we had 7.5, and in speaking we had 7.5. In this video, I'll be talking about how you can also achieve that type of score, and I'll be sharing tips on the things you should look out for when writing the IELTS test. If you'd like to see that, please make sure you watch this video to the very end. If you're watching this video, I want to believe you probably already know what the IELTS test is. Now, IELTS is the International English Language Testing System. It is an exam that you write, and it is as part of the requirements for the Canadian Express entry. I understand that there's also the type of test, the same IELTS test that you write for some university admissions and all that. But today I'll be talking about the one required for immigration, which is the general training test. I first want to give you 3 main tips. The rest of this video will be based on these 3 major tips. Number 1, master the test format. Right, because IELTS is an English test. A lot of us believe that, oh, we've been learning English, we've been speaking English, we went to school, learning in English language and all that. Because of this, you might overlook some things in the test and not prepare well for it. Don't make that mistake. You need to master the format of the test. What I mean by that is you need to know what types of questions to expect. Now, you need to know the number of sections, you need to know how many points each question carries and all that. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, master a method for each module. Now, for writing, you should have a method for each of the sections in the writing module. The same thing for listening. You should have a method, you should have a strategy of how you want to face each of those questions. And in reading also, there's a strategy. You need to strategize and master the method you want to use. The same thing goes for reading. The third tip I'll be giving you is that you should practice under exam conditions. I know this might sound funny, but look, the English language test, especially if you're someone in Nigeria, you would agree with me that it's really expensive. I think it goes for about 80,000 naira now, so which means it's a lot of money, right? And you don't want to keep writing this test, because I know that you would want to get the highest band so that it would contribute the highest possible number of scores to your CRS score, right? Now, when you're practicing, ensure that you are practicing under exam condition. You know that for the listening test, you have 30 minutes. For reading, you have 60 minutes. For writing, you have 60 minutes also. And for speaking, you have about 10, it ranges from 10 to 15 minutes, right? So when you are practicing for the exam, you know that for listening, you probably be using headphones. Practice using headphones, right? Practice within the number of minutes. Practice within the number of minutes that you know you would use during the text itself. When you're practicing, make sure you time yourself. Put a timer aside and set it to the exact time that the real test takes. Now, the 3 main tips. Number 1, master the test format. Number 2, master a method for each of the modules. Tip number 3, practice under exam conditions. Now, I will talk about each of the modules of the IELTS tests and give you tips for each of these modules. I will also see if I can create chapters so that you can skip to the module that interests you the most. Keep watching. Now, I'll talk about listening first. I know listening is one module that gives a lot of people issues. Of course, because there might be distractions in the hall, some people don't know how to focus, and because maybe some spelling issues and all that. Now, I'll be giving you tips on how you can pass listening. The test format for listening is that there will be 40 questions. You get 30 minutes to answer these questions and 10 minutes to transfer your answers, right? For me, I do not look at it that way. I look at the test that I have just 30 minutes to answer all the questions, and the remaining 10 minutes is just for me to cross-check my answers and ensure that I didn't make any mistakes. Because listening is a kind of test that you need to listen, right? There'll be audio recording that you listen to, and while the person or the persons in the audio recording, while they speak, you get to write down the answers. Now, for listening, my number one tip is that do not lose focus. Yes, I know it's somehow, right? I wrote the test twice, and I can tell you it's very easy for your mind to wander away. That is one thing you don't want your mind to do while writing the listening test. Do not allow your mind to wander away. In fact, come into the test center with a mindset that you are going to focus your mind on the test. It is not the time to think of what you have planned for the Saturday, because I know most the test is usually on Saturdays. I don't know. Do not allow your mind to wander away, because the way the listening test is set up is that once you miss your train of thoughts, once you are no longer following the conversation in the audio, you've missed it. In fact, you've missed one or two questions. And if you really want to get the highest score in listening, you can't afford to miss even one question. You can't afford to miss even one question. So out of 40 questions, you must attempt to get all the 40 questions. Now, another tip for listening is that you should mind your spellings. Mind your spellings. Make sure that you are spelling the words that you've heard in the audio. Make sure that you are spelling them correctly, right? Do not spell your words in a casual way, right? For example, some people are used to spelling, say, year, that is Y-O-U-R. I know some people spell it as U-R, which is totally wrong. I wouldn't expect anyone to write IELTS and use U-R to represent Y-O-U-R. But people still make such mistakes. And I know there are a lot of words like that people misspell. So when writing the listening test, you have to mind your spelling, because once you miss the spelling, you've missed the question. Another tip I want to give under listening is that you should try and write in pencil, right? This makes your work neat, and if you get to change anything, it's easier to clean it off. So use pencil. Do not let your mind wander away. The tip is that you should be very careful. Do not jump to answer those questions. Now, in the listening test, right, when you are listening to the audio, the conversation might go in a way that you would think they have finished talking, whereas they are just about to say the correct answer. For example, you can have a scenario where a student is talking to a professor, and that professor is saying, you could actually find me in room A, but I'd prefer room B. Now, if you were not listening carefully, you would assume that, say the question is, which room would you find the professor? You would assume that it's room A, because that was the first thing the professor said. But if you had waited a little bit, you would have heard the correct answer, which is room B, because The professor later mentioned that he would prefer room B, right? So one has to be very careful while answering listening questions. The third thing I'd like to add is that practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'll be putting a link in the description box below where you can find practice questions, where you can actually practice for free. I believe the website is free. You'll be able to practice as much as possible on that website. Now let's talk about reading. This is my favorite part of the IELTS test, right? I don't know. I had 9 in it. Now, you would have 40 questions and you have 60 minutes to answer these 40 questions. The questions would basically talk about maybe basic society, the Canadian society. Then there will be another passage talking about something interesting, right? And there are also several types of questions you'll be expecting for under reading. Now, for reading, the tips I have for you is that read the questions first. Once you get to reading, once you are ready to take the reading test, read the questions. Just quickly glance through the question, especially even if it's just the question for this section, for the first section that you're going to take, right? Quickly glance through the questions so that you have an idea of what to look out for in the passage. It just makes it easier. It makes the work to be smoother. I don't know, but that is the method I used. I look at the question first, then I read the passage. That's my number one tip. Second tip is that do not use more than the number of words required. For example, while taking the reading test, some sections will tell you 2 or more words, or 1 or 2 words required, or 1 or 2 words or numbers required. Do not use, where they say you should use 1 or 2 words, don't start writing a sentence. Do not use 3 words, right? Just use the number of words. And most times, the answer to these questions will be in the passage. No, the answers are always in the passage. They don't expect you to bring in an answer from your outside knowledge. So maybe where you see something, probably see a topic that you are familiar with, it's not the time to bring your your knowledge from university or something to answer. No, use the answers that are given in the passage. Right, that's the second tip. The third tip is practice. You see that practice is one major tip that keeps coming up, right? Make sure that you practice. Just take time to, do the test, just so that you are familiar with, what the test looks like, just so that you know what to expect. Practice. And one other thing that practicing helps you to do is to grow your vocabulary, right? So you get to see more words. When you practice reading, you get to see more words, and it's actually gets you ready for the test. Do not forget to always practice simulating exam conditions. By that I mean set a timer, be focused, right? I also want to mention that under reading, there is a section where you get to answer yes, no, or not given. You have to be very careful there. Do not bring, just like I mentioned earlier, do not bring in your knowledge from outside. Answer the question based on the information you've been given in the passage. If there is a positive statement concerning that question, that's a yes. If it's a negative statement in the passage concerning that question, that is no. If you can't find any information as to positive or negative about that question that you are being asked, that is not given. That's just the method, right? Master it. If you have seen this video up to this moment, I hope you have learned 1 or 2 things. Please do not forget to like this video. Also subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. I'll do a continuation of this video and I'll link it up here. Thank you very much.